You're listening to Season 3 of the Fairways People podcast, where we share inspiring stories, meaningful conversations, and the voices behind our charity. Each episode offers a closer look at the people and passion that drive us. Hosted by Fairways Managing Director Gareth Webb.
Hello, welcome to another Fairways People podcast. My name's Gareth Webb, the Managing Director, and I'm delighted to say today I've got an external guest, a fantastic friend as well, Mr. Chris Wild. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, it's an honour to be here, mate. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. I know how busy you are, and so I appreciate you giving me a bit of time.
Thank you.
So just a quick introduction, you're a massive care leaver campaigner, your lived experience, you've done lots of work with the government, NHS, in social care, you're a keynote speaker, you're a 2 times best-selling author. So yeah, you do a lot, and I know you stand for a lot around, advocate for young people in care. So again, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, mate.
I just wanted to say how we first met, because
Yeah.
I don't know if I've shared all of this with you, but I read your books, and I think it was the state of it. I was captivated by the state of it,
Yeah.
and how you sort of really uncover the raw part of social care and children's social care. And I was, when I picked up, I just couldn't put it down. And then at the end, you did a little live interview type role with Neil Morrissey, which was really interesting. But we don't often get books that are so sort of real around the care system. So I remember looking and trying to get your contacts, and I sent you an email, and then you actually reached out, and we had a conversation on Teams. And then, of course, that must have been about 5 years ago. And since then, you've spoken at our conference and done lots of things. So so thank you. So that's been really good. But
thanks, buddy. Cheers. Yeah. Thank you, mate.
So what I normally do with a lot of my guests is just start from the beginning. So if you don't mind, just tell me a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, man. And thank you for that as well. You know, it's been an incredible journey, and you've been a part of that as much as Fairways has. But my journey started when I was 11 years old. So I was born and bred in Halifax, West Yorkshire. So if anybody doesn't know that, the listeners, if you've seen Happy Valley on TV, so it's very green, it's very colourful, it's a nice little town. And I was born into a world of love. And when I say I was born into a world of love, I had parents. I didn't know about any of the iniquities of the world. I was very protected. I say that. I use that love and communication and community and security and stability. That's all I knew growing up. But my dad passed away when I was 11. My mom suffered with mental health. Didn't really have a support system as such because my grandparents were too old. And I found myself going into a children's home because at that time, I kind of rebelled, as most young boys do. You know, I was out on the streets, breaking windows, shoplifting, not because I was a criminal. It was because I was suffering. I think I find a lot of young men in particular, that's how they cope with grief. And at the time, a decision was made to be taken into a children's home. And it wasn't just any children's home. It was a very dangerous children's home at the time, run by predators. And that was kind of like my introduction into the care system. I never heard of care. I'd never heard of it. If you would say to me, as a young boy growing up in Halifax, what's care? I wouldn't know. I would have probably just kind of said to you, Oliver Twist, because that was the generation. You know, you saw Oliver Twist, Fagin. You thought, oh, all these kids who don't have parents, this is what happens. And I found myself in that situation. But at the time, you know, it was a very family-orientated thing, these boys on the streets. And, you know, even now we look at young men on their bikes in hoodies and you think, I get it. I get why you guys come together because it's a security thing. The children's home wasn't great. I won't go into details as such, but you by saying it was run by predators, I'm sure you understand what that is, and the listeners will. And it wasn't a safe place. And I found myself homeless and being on the streets. Again, it's a very difficult thing to say, and for people to comprehend that at 12 years old, being homeless and being on the streets. But then, as we know, when you are vulnerable, you become valuable. You become currency to a lot of older boys, gang members. And I found myself in that situation again. But again, for a young person who didn't have support, who was still grieving the loss of his dad. Like, my dad was my hero. He was a big part of my life. So, you know, even now at 45, it's still kind of difficult to kind of understand that process, but at that age you really don't. So you're always kind of trying to find a solution, and that solution was just to be in an environment where I guess there was some kind of stability in community, but for the wrong reasons. Um, my life changed. I was caught up in all that criminal activity and stuff, but my life changed dramatically. Um, going into the
Mhm.
boxing gym.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I know, and you,
boxing.
yeah.
Sorry,
Go
mate. Go on.
on. I was saying you talk a lot in your book about that
Yeah,
children's home and growing up, and that's it's quite inspiring of where you've come from and where you're at now.
yeah.
But yeah, I remember you talk about boxing, or was really significant for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, but and boxing really was, and it's again, I think it's going into the ring, going into the gym is it gives you a sense of purpose, and I talk about that a lot. Where young men, young women as well, young girls, you go into that environment because again, there's a community there, there's stability there, there's a sense of security there as well, where
Yeah,
you're learning all these new practical skills. And I think for me, that was my schooling because I didn't have much of an education because I was in and out of care and on the streets and getting expelled. But the gym was kind of like the first sturdy foundation I had as a child. And
yeah,
being surrounded by other young men who'd gone through that process, who'd gone through the system, but turned that adversity into an advantage
yeah,
and used all that negative energy in a positive way and getting into the boxing ring and finding yourself again and believing in yourself and seeing those trivial successes and seeing but you can get fit, massive influence in my life. And it was a real game changer for me because I realized, oh, you don't have to go down this pathway, there's a different pathway, and that
yeah,
comes with all these rewards. And that reward was, you become incredibly fit, you learn a lot of discipline, and you get to hit people and not get arrested. I mean, that's a bonus.
yeah,
But boxing was great, man. It was, for me, it's it's still now a big part of my life,
yeah,
going back into the care system as a professional and working with young boys and seeing them become very successful because that's what it offers. It offers a passport away from crime.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you, you, when you sort of spent time in care, if you don't mind me asking, did you
Yeah.
actually spend time in fostering or foster placements, or was it children's homes? Or?
Yeah, I didn't because again, if we just go back into kind of like the generational thing, there weren't a lot of foster parents back in the 80s and going into the 90s. So if I'm in care in 1991, foster care wasn't as popular or kind of as demanding as it is now. So it was very much local residential care homes for children. But remember as well, you didn't have a lot of people in care.
Yeah,
Although a lot of people, when I was growing up, like a family member would take you in, social workers didn't get much involved, but they only got involved if there was some kind of problem or you were in court every week. So residential care was the only kind of solution back then. It's only as we've got further on in the world and things have changed that we know, but
yeah,
children need to be in foster care first and foremost because it offers a family environment of love and stability.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I was just in a residential care home. I didn't even know, I think also it's quite important to say that kinship care is a new thing as well. It's
Yeah.
for me, there was no, I
Nothing.
remember
No.
sat down at a table with a social worker and saying, well, why can't I live with my grandparents? Because I don't need to be at this place. And them saying, well, your grandparents are old and you're problematic and that'll be a problem. So yeah, it was never an option. So it was only residential care where my own personal experience was.
That's crazy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so thank you. So you spoke
Yeah.
about boxing was really key on sort of them
Yeah.
pathways and a positive pathway. And we talk a lot about you know or a lot of young people coming through the care system tend to say this, but there was one significant person or a role model
Yeah.
for you. Who was your that turning point for you? Who was your sort of role model or someone that kept you
Yeah, it's
on the
it's
straight and
really
narrow?
good. I heard a quote recently. I'll just say this quote before I continue. But somebody said that a parent's character is a child's first education. It's a really powerful quote. And my dad was an incredible man. So I had that. You can imagine. That role model, that
Yeah,
father figure. What my dad was. He was a hero. And I've always been like looking for that. And when I went into the care system, that had gone completely. I didn't have that role model, that mentor. But going back into the boxing gym, there was one man called Jimmy Moore, and he was a family friend. But I think he was the first person who, like my dad,
yeah,
who I could trust and who believed in me. And that was such an important figure in my life was Jimmy. Like, he really saw the good in me. And I think it's so important to have that. Like people, you can't be successful. You can't survive on your own. It's really,
Yeah.
that's a really important part of that process, is that you need good people around you. And Jimmy Moore was that guy. He would check in on me. He would talk to me like a son, and he was really inspirational for me. And me and
Yeah.
Jimmy have a great relationship now, still to this day.
When you were talking, I could see the passion. I actually got tingles down my arms when you
Yeah,
learned his name then. I could just feel
yeah,
it coming through. But
yeah,
yeah, no, it's so important that our young people
yeah.
have that sort of someone that can support and role model. So okay, Chris. So how did you get into? What made you get into the social care then, or children's services, or so to speak?
Yeah, I guess for me, everybody has their own kind of reasons for doing it, and I guess for me, it was a call, and it can be a bit of a cliche sometimes. Oh, it's a calling, but it really is for some people. And I think I'd gone up and down. I'd been homeless. I'd gone through my 20s really suffering with addiction and alcoholism, and I'd been homeless twice, literally homeless on the streets at 27, begging, because there was no early intervention. There was no CAMS. There was no therapeutic support for me. So whatever happened to me as a child, I kind of just ignored it and put it at the back of my brain. But then going into my 20s, it all came out. And I think that's what trauma does, doesn't it? It comes out at different stages in your life. And it really hit me like a brick in the 20s, where I realized, oh my God, I don't have a dad, and I've done all this, and this happened to me, and this happened to me. And that trauma really hit me. And I didn't know how to kind of deal with it, even though I'd had a career in the boxing gym. But still, it doesn't matter how successful you are. If those foundations are cracked and broken, you're going to fall through at some point, regardless of what you're doing. So it's
Yeah.
really key and really important for young people in the care system to have a positive mentor from day one, somebody who believes in them, and some structure. That was missing for me. And it wasn't until, and you know this story,
Yeah.
but I met my wife. And it's also important to say this as well, that it doesn't have to be a male role model. We can have female role models as well. And my wife was a female role model. It was just somebody who believed in me. I didn't have to lie. I didn't have to pretend to be something I wasn't. I didn't have to sit there and be this bravado. And she really believed in me. And I'd had so many failures. And I mean, talking about failures, like I probably could count. It's not really great for a CV, but I probably could count about 100 jobs, like literally telesales, market research, nothing. Because remember, when you have that upbringing where it's different now, but back then, I'd been expelled from school. I didn't have any GCSEs, qualifications. There was nothing on my CV. And it was very much CV driven. When I was in my early 20s, it
Yeah.
didn't matter about lived experience or practical skills. It was like, what's on your CV? We know it's different now. And I couldn't get a job. And I was working and trying to get things. And my wife had said to me one day, I had a massive breakdown at home. And she's like, what are you crying for? I'm like, because I can't work in telesales and do this anymore and make no money. And you're pregnant and we've got a mortgage and I'm a bum. And, I'm just a loser. And she's like, pick yourself back up now. Stop this nonsense. As she does. And she says, I say this, I always quote this because it's a beautiful, and it's gospel truth from word to word. She said, a bad workman blames his tools for doing a bad job. Your tools is your past. Go back into the system and help other people like you. And that was that pinnacle moment, that eureka moment, when you think, oh yeah, you're right. It wasn't a waste of time. All that, energy which found me being addicted and being on the streets and doing all kinds of iniquities, it's not a waste of time. I can put that to good use and go back into the care system and help other people like me. And it was a massive boost, that motivation, that movement for me to get back into the system. But going back, it was 2015. I'd got my first job in a children's home, a private children's home. And then I realized, but nothing had changed, and it really bothered me. It really bothered me, mate. And I say it bothered me because I shouldn't have to come back into a system 28 years later and see, but nothing had changed. And when I say nothing had changed, that I saw young men like me just being neglected, ignored. And the most horrifying thing I saw was cars coming at the weekend to pick up young people and take them away, and staff not being engaged and reporting that to the police. It really bothered me. It bothered me so much that something ticked inside my head, which said, okay, you're going to now become a campaigner and stop this from happening. You're going to change the system. And I was so motivated by that, mate. It really was.
Yeah, yeah. And you've done a lot, haven't you? A lot of campaigning.
Yeah.
You've been involved with sort of government the report with Josh McAllister, the committee
Yeah.
report with that. See, I know you've done lots, but so what's your because you've got lots of projects. What's your real focus at the minute for young
Yeah,
people?
so my focus is at the moment is like I'd gone back into being involved in independent care review was great because what that did is I had to understand how it works politically. I had to understand because you can't just start campaigning and challenging policy and procedure without knowing what it really is. So going into the care review and having that education and working with some incredible people who are academics, who are really good social workers, or just genuine good people who worked in the care system and have that knowledge. So going back into that and looking at policy, working with policy and legislation, for me, it was like, okay, I've got those skills now. I can adapt those skills and then start campaigning and trying to see how we can find a solution because we know the system is not great. We know that it's, over the last 20 years, social services has been inundated with young people coming into care because of mental health, mainly poverty, where families just can't support children, so they have to go into the care system. Mental health played a big part in that. So I kind of saw that and thought, do you know what? If I can do anything, I want to try and fill that gap, be the bridge. So going into that and kind of realizing for me, the biggest void in my life was 16 to 18, where, there's a gap in law, there's a gap in legislation and policy where these young people can be described as young adults, but yet they're just children at 16 and they're expected to be independent and do all these things. But then doing that research and campaigning, going into jails and speaking to young people and finding out, but really overrepresented in places like jails and mental health wards. And, and we did a thing like we'd gone out on the streets and we spoke to, I think about 100 young people in a week who were homeless in London. This is London, not across the country. And of those 100 we spoke to in a week, I think 80% had been in care at some point in their lives. And it was like, you know what? We've got to do something. We've got to change the system. So for me, my focus was, right, what did I need? What does any young person need? And they need the right support. They need a safe place to call home. We both know that. I think everybody knows that. You can't do anything unless you've got some place where you can go and put your head down, sleep. But then looking at opportunities for young people, I was aware that there's many programs out there which give young people jobs, but it's no point having a job if you've got nowhere to live. There's no point having a job if you don't have the bus fare to get to work. Hey, mate, you still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost you there. Sorry, buddy.
No, right.
So my focus right now is I'm still very aligned to the campaigning work with Terry Galloway, making care experience a protected characteristic, because we believe if the law changes, it will prevent local authorities and other bodies from kind of neglecting their needs. And when I say neglecting their needs, it's not, it's not just about giving people a bus pass or a library card. They need some practical skills. So if you're going to support someone, support them from the day they go into care until the day they leave care. So I'm really focused at the moment on looking at those gaps and trying to find a solution to the problem alongside the campaigning work, but also with an organization called Foster Greatness UK, which I'll go into just a little bit. So Foster Greatness UK it's going to be an online hub, a national online hub, which is going to be like a one-stop shop for professionals and care leavers across the country, where they can go and access all this information and training. Basically, what we're doing, instead of people searching, we'll bring it to you. You shouldn't have to search for somewhere to live or a job or some training. So we thought, hang on a minute, what if we create this technology where we can bring everything together on one platform and deliver this to young people, deliver it to professionals, provide everything they need. But it's not just about doing this on our own. It's about collaboration. As we've seen, what I think has been the problem for so many years is people work in silos. Charities, organizations, they work in silos. And when you're working in silos and you're not sharing information, you're not coming together to find solutions, it gets lost in the system.
Yeah.
Like, some great charities out there doing some great work. But if you're doing one thing and they're doing another thing, it gets confusing. So if it's confusing for professionals, how confusing is it for young people? And I'll give you an example just of that is when I was working in the care system, a young lad had left care, come back and said, Chris, I need some help. So we sat down at a laptop and we're looking at all these resources online. We're calling them and they don't exist anymore. So local authorities are not updating their systems.
Yeah.
And people just lose trust in the system. So we want to generate something, create something. But I think the most important thing about Foster Greatness UK is two things. Number one, it's a social enterprise. So it comes from an American organization called Doing Good Works, which was founded by a guy called Scott Henderson. So he saw a gap in a market in America where a lot of his staff members were care experienced and they weren't coming to work. So he supported this kind of, it's kind of like a sister company where you provide support alongside people having work and stuff like that. But Foster Greatness UK is about not aging out neither. It's about building a community. We know most people at 25, they leave care and that's it. It's goodbye, God bless, good luck. I hope you do well. And that's not enough because at 26, 27, it's like, well, I still can't get a job. I still can't find somewhere to live. So it's about bringing all that together and extending that where there's no such thing as aging out. Because I know now at 45, I'm giving advice to young people who are in their 20s, and that advice is priceless. And we can build this community where we can all come together, even professionals, not just young people, and learn from each other. So that's what Foster Greatness is. It's about fostering greatness. Collaboration is the key thing here. We don't want to compete with anybody because there's no point duplicating stuff. It's you know, if charities like Become, which do incredible work, if they're doing a program and a project, why do I need to do it? But they need the resources, they need the numbers. So it's like, we'll come together, we'll collaborate, and we'll bring those to you. So that's what it is. It's kind of like a coordinator for organizations, because a lot of these small organizations, if they don't get the numbers, they'll go into liquidation and they'll cease to exist. We don't want that when they provide. I mean, so that's my focus right now is building that bridge, bringing everybody together under one umbrella and really focusing on the outcomes, mate, because, you know, the statistics are going up. They're not going down. We know that. We both know that.
Definitely, no, 100%. And you're right. I'd come across a small charity recently online, Flying Solo, that support care leavers locally. I've managed to finally get in contact with the CEO, and I'm really sorry we had to collapse it because we couldn't keep it running. And it's just so sad, isn't it? But like, you create this community where organisations can come together is amazing. So if people want to read more, learn more about that, how do they get the info, Chris? Is there a website yet?
There's a website, and we actually, funny thing, we actually launch in 2 weeks, and I've got this we've got this incredible woman called Alexandra Rudman. Just for your listeners, Alexandra, she worked for Shells for 10 years. She worked for Become. She worked for the care leaders. She's absolutely formidable, and she gets it. And she's the one who's devised this tool to create all these opportunities. But for anybody listening and anybody wants to get involved, they can go to Foster Greatness UK. So that's www.fostergreatness.uk. .co.uk, I think, but you find it through Foster Greatness UK. And then also my own personal branding work, what I do in my books and my campaigning work is Chris Wild, and you can find me online and stuff, but I'm bringing them both together. So I'm still doing what I'm doing independently with the campaigning work. I'm not kind of bringing that into Foster Greatness, because Foster Greatness is focused solely on working together. You know, I don't want to get politically involved with Foster Greatness. It's a mechanism.
Yeah, definitely. No, that sounds fantastic. So, what's your biggest achievement so far, Chris, would you say, for you?
Yeah, and it's a really good question. And I sometimes struggle with it, because I could say my biggest achievement is, you know, of course, it's being here and having a family. Again, success is subjective. For me, I've just wanted a family of my own. I think that's a really successful thing. I'm not ashamed to say that in any kind of, you know, in any kind of arrogant way. But also, I think, you know, we've got to take pride in what we do. And I'm you know, to be an author, to leave school with no GCSEs and become a published author, to have this incredible, you know, my wife reminded me a couple of days ago, I was a bit down in the dumps, and I needed picking up a little bit. And I said, you know, I think I'm past this now. I don't have the energy to do this. And she went, what are you talking about? You've done some incredible work and people rely on you. So I think for me, that biggest achievement is being an advocate, going out there, inspiring young people to chase their dreams, become writers, you know, and and that's what I love. Like for me now, my generation, I'm 46, mate. It's like we're getting old, but to see, like Ashley John Baptiste and people who I've worked with over the years to really come forward and start to take the lead politically as well, and just see these young people who, for me, when I do a conference and they say, "Hey, Chris, I read your book. Now I want to be a writer," or "Hey, Chris, I'm going to be a campaigner." That's a big achievement. Yeah, I would say that, being an advocate.
Yeah, and never lose sight of that. We have bad days, Chris, but the work
Yeah.
you've been doing is life changing for some young people. So, you
Thank you,
did fantastic work. So, just to
Yeah.
cut, but what's your? We talk about our why. Why we do what we do. You've
Yeah.
expressed a lot about but why do you keep getting out of bed and doing what you do?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I always think, why don't I? It's like it's for me, it's like I've never called this a job. I've never ever in my 15 years in this career called it a job. I call it, again, it's a calling. It really is a calling. But I know I don't want to make it all melancholic and kind of bring people down. But I know a lot of bad things happen out there. Josh McAllister has just published. Well, he's just kind of announced the care leavers death review. So we know that a lot of young people are leaving care and they're committing suicide. Ashley John Baptiste, which is really good news. Somebody with real lived experience is leading this review. So this is great for our community. But that's what gets me up every day. I know across the country, even when these reviews are happening, and even when we're on stage and doing great work, even when we're doing podcasts like this, there's some child suffering. There's some child living in fear, starving, not knowing what to do, have nowhere to, and it's the old reason why we've created Foster Greatness UK, because you don't have to go through that on your own. You really don't. So that gets me up every day. I'm incredibly motivated. I'm involved in many projects, but I think that's my therapy as well, mate. And people say, well, you shouldn't bring your own personal experience into your work, but I don't care. It is for me. It's the reason I do it. It's the reason I get up every day, because I know,
but
you put a little bit. I
know,
but
really
again,
know it.
I really know it, but I know, and I know when you do put the right support in place, and these people thrive in the communities, then they come back and find you 5 years later and say, "Hey, I'm doing a degree now in economics." You're like, "Oh my God, thank you," and they say, "No, thank you." That's why we do it.
Definitely, 100%. Last question I've got for you, Chris. A lot of my guests, I ask him sort of, the chaos of everyday life, mental health. What do you do for your own well-being now as you're getting older, Chris?
It's a good question, and I'm not, again, I'm not ashamed or embarrassed to say to listeners and to you is that a couple of days ago I hit an all-time low, and I hit an all-time low where, remember, when you do this work, I hear a lot of bad stories and I can't save everybody. That sometimes gets me down and depressed, where I'll get an email from someone saying, "Hey man, I've got no money, I'm scared, I'm stuck," and I'm like, "I'm trying to help you, buddy," and I just can't. It really hits me hard, mate. It hits me hard where I'll come home and I'll cry, and I'm again. There's no embarrassment in that. There's no shame in coming home and being a human being. But the biggest part of this job as a campaigner and doing this is you've got to look after yourself. You really do. Because if I don't look after myself, I can't look after young people. So I go to the gym. Boxing's a big part of my life. Again, it goes back to that childhood memory of being in the gym and having that stability. I go back to the gym. As a 46-year-old man, you've got to protect that ticker a little bit. But I think what I've started to do, I've realized that social media, looking at other people's successes and thinking, it doesn't bother me no more. What bothers me is doing the good work. I don't care about accolades. I don't care about, oh, this person is getting all these conferences and this person, because that's not important. What is important for me is getting up every day, being able to do this work, do it good and see results. And I think that's my mental health. Surround myself with good people, eat good food, sleep well, and do things like this, have good conversations. That's kind of the dopamine, is like talking to you now and talking to like people who are passionate and care. That's good for my mental health. I like that.
Love it. Thanks, Chris. Look, I could, we could speak for hours. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We got the Fostering Friendly Business Summit on the 11th of May at the Guildhall, Portsmouth, and you'll come to talk for us. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm really excited. And I just want to say quickly to you as well, I think I've said it to you hundreds of times, but I think Fairways for me, I've been involved in that journey for a long time. And I think when I talk about leaders, you are leaders. You are I talk about it with everyone saying, hey, look, check Fairways out. And I think you've done incredible work, mate, yourself in particular. And I just want to say a big thank you for everything you do, pal, because that inspires me too.
Thank you. God, give me emotional. Thanks. I appreciate that, man. I appreciate
Thank you, buddy.
And I highly recommend your 2 books, Damaged
Yeah,
and The
thank
State
you.
of It. Where can people, are they online? You can just order them
Yeah,
online.
so Damaged and The State of It. I'm actually just working on a third and last one
Oh,
now.
really?
Which
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, which hopefully I'll have more news when I see you later on in the year. But
Yeah.
Damaged and The State of It, you can get it on Amazon. They're inspirational books. They're not just a book about care. They're a book for anyone, professionals and young people who just need that hope, that light. They need to read about something and be inspired, but anything is possible. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. Read the books, chase your dreams, believe in yourself, and be a good person, and everything else will take care of itself.
Perfect. Well, Chris, thanks. It's been emotional as always. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, mate.
I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.
Cheers. Goodbye.